In 1971, the Canadian rock band Five Man Electrical Band released their best-known song, Signs. The chorus laments, "Signs, signs, everywhere a sign, blocking out the scenery, breaking my mind." That song was written by band member Les Emerson as he was traveling Route 66 between Canada and Los Angeles and growing increasingly frustrated with all the signs along the highway blocking his view of the natural scenery. I can't help but wonder, if Les Emerson were still traveling around the United States today, would he write a song about surveillance cameras? I am Dr. John Padfield, an engineer turned state representative turned business professor, and this is Business Reform, where we discuss issues at the intersection of business, technology, and society. As Michigan struggles to deal with an invasive species of carp threatening to damage the ecosystems across the Great Lakes, there is another invasive species propagating across America, threatening our Fourth Amendment right to privacy. It is a massive flock of surveillance cameras, and they are proliferating not just in big cities, but in small towns and even rural areas at an alarming rate. In this video, I am not only going to discuss the negative effects of these invasive cameras, but stick with me until the end, and I will share how you personally can help stop this infestation and how a federal lawsuit currently working its way through the Eastern District of Virginia could potentially eradicate them as they are being used today. These cameras migrated from a privately held Atlanta-based company called Flock Safety, and the company claims these surveillance cameras will not just reduce, but eliminate crime wherever they roost. Flock Safety was founded in 2017, and by 2024 they claim to have over $300 million in annual recurring revenue, which they say represents a 70% growth year over year. If you're wondering how they earn $300 million in annual recurring revenue from selling surveillance cameras, you need to understand their business model. Flock Safety cameras aren't just cameras. They are also automated license plate readers. Automated license plate readers are nothing new. As early as 1979, the United Kingdom had working prototypes of cameras equipped with optical character recognition software that could capture license plate numbers from cars traveling at highway speeds. By the early 2000s, automated license plate readers were already in widespread use and being used to find stolen vehicles, vehicles associated with Amber Alerts, and vehicle owners who had outstanding warrants for their arrest. I view these uses of this technology as legitimate law enforcement tools, and I personally do not have any problem with these use cases. If a vehicle has been reported as stolen, or police have a warrant to arrest someone and they know the license plate number of the vehicle that person drives, they can enter that information, and the next time that vehicle drives past a license plate reader, the police will be notified so the vehicle can be stopped. The key is that in these cases, the cameras are being used to look for a particular vehicle that has been entered onto what is called a hot list. But of course, the use of this technology didn't stop there. According to a 2012 news article based on hundreds of pages of secret NYPD documents obtained by the Associated Press, the New York Police Department was using automated license plate readers to collect the license plate numbers of all Muslims arriving at the mosque to pray. In that action, the NYPD changed the use of automated license plate readers from a tool to locate people who had an arrest warrant issued against them to a tool of mass surveillance to record the movements of large groups of people just in case a few of them might be involved in illegal activity. In 2016, federal ICE agents used automated license plate readers to capture the license plate numbers of everyone attending gun shows in Southern California, not because they were looking for someone with an outstanding warrant, but because this was a convenient tool of mass surveillance to generate a list of people exercising their Second Amendment rights. As always, links to all of my sources can be found in the description of this video. This use of automated license plate readers by the NYPD and ICE for mass surveillance pales in comparison to what Flock Surveillance does today with their AI-powered camera network. Flock surveillance cameras not only record the date, time, location, and license plate number of every vehicle that passes through its field of view, Their vehicle fingerprint feature also captures the make, model, and color of the vehicle that plate is on, along with other characteristics, including roof racks, dents, and bumper stickers. I'm sure that feature would never be politically weaponized to generate a list of people with pro-Second Amendment or controversial bumper stickers on their vehicles. The flock surveillance cameras also enable what they call convoy search, so, quote, hidden links can be discovered between vehicles that might be traveling together. This invasive flock of surveillance cameras has already spread to over 5,000 communities, and because they are all networked into one centralized database, a person living in one state could easily be tracked several states away while driving on business, vacation, or to visit family and friends. Wait a minute. Did that say 5,000 plus communities made safer? Shouldn't it say 5,000 plus communities are now crime-free since these cameras eliminate crime? I plan to make a follow-up video where I examine the FBI crime statistics to see if cities that have implemented flock cameras really have experienced any drop in crime compared to cities that have not implemented them. The point, though, is that Flock doesn't just sell cameras, they sell a subscription service that allows their users to search for license plates, vehicle descriptions, and even bumper stickers. That is how they generate $300 million in recurring annual revenue. But their customers are not just law enforcement. Last week I needed to make a purchase at Lowe's, and I noticed a Flock surveillance camera at the entrance of the Lowe's parking lot. Before even getting out of my car, I drove to the other entrance to the parking lot and found another Flock surveillance camera capturing all the license plates of cars pulling into that entrance as well. I assumed these cameras were under contract to Lowe's instead of the city, so to test my theory I drove to another Lowe's in Franklin, Indiana, and found they also had Flock cameras. But these Flock cameras were not facing the Lowe's parking lot. They were oriented to cover the street in front of the Lowe's parking lot. So much for the idea if you don't want to be recorded, just don't go to Lowe's. It appears they will record you if you just drive past some of their stores. Then I went to a third Lowe's in Greenwood, Indiana, and they not only had 3 Flock cameras monitoring all the entrances to their parking lot, but they had 2 live view telescoping trailer camera arrays set up in their parking lot as well. This was in addition to all of the regular security cameras mounted on the Lowe's building. I do not claim to be an expert on Lowe's, and I don't know what type of crime problems they are dealing with at their Greenwood, Indiana store. But if their goal is to make customers feel safer with those live view camera towers in the parking lot, it had the exact opposite effect on me. I felt like I was parking and walking into a Supermax prison. I found 3 out of 3 Lowe's stores I visited last week in south central Indiana had Flock safety cameras. Lowe's admits in their current privacy statement that they may capture your license plate information. According to the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, the last sentence that I have circled in red was added to the Lowe's U.S. privacy statement sometime between June 26 and July 6, 2023, as that statement did not appear on their website as of June 26. Trust me, I will have a lot more to say about Lowe's privacy policy in an upcoming video. In addition to the Flock cameras that I have seen at Lowe's, I have also seen several others mounted to posts along the highway outside of city limits, which means the county government has entered into contracts with Flock Safety to track people driving down public roads. Flock Safety claims in addition to eliminating crime, they also, quote, build products and design systems with checks and balances to ensure the ethical use of our technology. Let's test that last claim by examining how well Flock Safety ensures the ethical use of their technology. In April 2023, a police lieutenant was convicted of computer crime and stalking. Prosecutors said he, quote, took advantage of his position in the department to use the Flock license plate reader to monitor his estranged wife's location. But thankfully, that is the only time the Eye of Sauron, Flock Safety's database of license plates, has ever been abused. Well, except for 6 months later in October 2023 when the police chief of Sedgwick, Kansas, was forced to resign after it was discovered that he had used Flock Safety license plate database 164 times to track his ex-girlfriend and an additional 64 times to track her new boyfriend. He was not caught through an audit of how often he had accessed the flock safety database to look up the same two license plates. He was caught because he was under investigation for other alleged misconduct, and the people conducting that investigation stumbled upon his abuse of the flock safety database to stalk his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. It is impossible to say how often Flock Safety's Eye of Sauron database has been abused, but these two known incidents prove the risk of abuse is not just theoretical. Their technology has been abused and put other people's lives at risk multiple times that we know of, and that undermines the claim their system of checks and balances ensure the ethical use of their technology. I'm calling this myth busted. But as serious as the outright abuse of this technology is, there is even a bigger issue, the United States Constitution, specifically the Fourth Amendment, which protects Americans against unreasonable searches by requiring a warrant based upon enough evidence to convince a judge that probable cause exists to issue the warrant before the search can be conducted. In 2018, the United States Supreme Court handed down a ruling overturning a lower court ruling in the case of Carpenter v. United States. In that case, the government had obtained cell phone location data to track Carpenter's every move for 127 days, which showed Carpenter had been near 4 robbery locations at the time those robberies had occurred. To many people, this may sound like solid police work, but the prosecutors obtained those months of cell phone location data without a warrant. The government argued they didn't need a warrant because all that location data collected by the wireless carrier were just business records. However, the Supreme Court ruled that tracking someone's location for an extended period of time constitutes a search under the Fourth Amendment. The Supreme Court specifically rejected the prosecution's argument that the third-party doctrine governed these business records, so they didn't need a warrant. The Supreme Court noted, quote, "The world of difference between the limited types of personal information addressed in precedent and the exhaustive chronicle of location information casually collected by wireless carriers." Based on this landmark case, in October 2024, the Institute for Justice filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Norfolk, Virginia, over their decision to install 172 flock safety cameras around the city to track the movements of virtually every vehicle in the city. The city of Norfolk argued these cameras are a necessary tool for law enforcement, even though the city had gotten along just fine without them since 1682. The city filed a motion to dismiss the case and argued the cameras are just for public safety and they are not an invasion of privacy. In February of this year, the federal judge overseeing that case denied the city's motion to dismiss, and the lawsuit has now moved into discovery. Based on the Supreme Court's ruling that gathering a person's location history via cell phone tracking requires a warrant, I believe the Institute for Justice has a strong case against the city of Norfolk and a good chance of winning. It is anyone's guess what remedy the court would issue, but it could be anything from requiring a search warrant to access the flock safety database to possibly even ordering these municipal governments to end their contracts with flock safety and to remove the cameras completely. Discovery is expected to last until early 2026, so we might see the trial in mid to late 2026. Be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date on this case as it proceeds through the court system. In the meantime, there are things you can do to slow the migration of this invasive flock of surveillance cameras where you live. There is a website called deflock.me that tracks the spread of these cameras. If you see automated license plate readers in your community, I encourage you to document them and share that information with deflock.me. so they can add your community to their map of where these cameras are located. As a side note, flock safety seems to have as little respect for the First Amendment as they do for the Fourth Amendment. In February of this year, Flock Safety sent a cease and desist letter to deflock.me, claiming the camera mapping website is diluting Flock Safety's trademark. Privacy advocates at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a couple of which I know personally from serving on panel discussions with them, responded on behalf of deflock.me and rejected their demand for the cease and desist. And this next suggestion is really going to make me popular with law enforcement. If you already have Flock automated license plate readers in your area, I encourage you to send a Freedom of Information Act request, also known as a FOIA request, to the city police if the cameras are in city limits, or to the county sheriff if the cameras are outside of city limits. The Freedom of Information Act is federal legislation signed into law on July 4, 1966 by President Johnson. It grants the public the right to access most executive branch records with a few exceptions, such as personnel records or information pertaining to ongoing law enforcement investigations. I have used the Federal Freedom of Information Act to request information from the FBI about an operation they ran a few years ago where they conducted a sting operation by selling fake privacy phones. I received a response that I will discuss in a future video. While the 1966 law only applied to the federal government, all 50 states have passed a Freedom of Information Act to grant the public the right to access most state, county, and city government records. However, the scope, procedure, and exemptions vary state by state. If you have never written a FOIA request before, I suggest using this website for the sample letters that you can tailor for your request. You should ask for a copy of the contract the city police or county sheriff's department has with Flock Safety and a copy of the policy and procedures manual the law enforcement agency has put in place to govern who within the department has access to the Flock Safety database and under what circumstances they can access it. Ask specifically if the department keeps a log of who searches for what license plate and if that log is routinely audited to ensure the database is not being abused by anyone checking up on their spouse, significant other, or someone they hold a grudge against. The recipient of a FOIA is required by law to respond to you, usually within 7 to 30 days depending on what state you are in, and they either have to provide you with the information you requested or explain why, under the laws of your state, that information is exempt from FOIA request. There may be a fee associated with it, and if so, they will let you know what it's going to cost to get copies of the information that you requested. Regardless of the response you get, I would appreciate it if you would share the response you get with me by emailing me at businessreform@proton.me. I will compile your responses and make a follow-up video. If you still live in an area that has not been invaded by a flock of surveillance cameras and license plate readers, I would encourage you to write a very polite letter to your local police chief, sheriff, mayor, and county council and let them know how you feel about these cameras and letting them know about the federal lawsuit against the city of Norfolk, Virginia that is currently working its way through the courts. Feel free to send them a link to this video, but please be very polite and respectful in all of your communications. Finally, if your company or organization is looking for a speaker for a retreat or event, I am available to speak on a variety of topics. Visit my website at businessreform.org. What privacy invading technology bothers you the most? What ideas do you have for protecting your privacy? Are you willing to send a letter or a FOIA request to your city or county law enforcement? I can't wait to read your comments.